What's up, everybody? Welcome to the second episode of OnlyFins. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about everybody's favorite pump, which is the Sicce Ultra Zero utility pump. Now, when you go to have a fish tank and you're going to have a bigger one, you're going to need some type of water transfer pump. You're not going to want to do it with gravity. It takes too damn long, and especially if you have, 8 million tanks because you become addicted like I did, then you're going to have even more. So the hardest part about doing water changes is that you want to get it done. You want to get it done quickly. Now, what you will see is that everybody in the hobby always utilizes one of these, which is the Sicce Ultra Zero utility pump. Now, you can see I've equipped mine with a Python into it, which I've actually made longer by getting a 20-foot extension and made a double female on that end and a female on this end so that I can stick it in the tank and it can sit down. Now, the other thing that I've done with the Sicce Ultra Zero is I've gone to Home Depot and got some of these bungee cord strap things so that way I can hook them on to the side of the tank, because you don't want it holding by the cord. You definitely don't want it holding by that, and you don't want to take a chance of that ripping off. So I want all the weight when I'm doing my water transfer onto this. Now, I'm not going to be disassembling this pump. Basically, today what we're going to be showing is how fast this pump actually functions. I have now had 3 of these pumps. Sicce claims they're extremely quiet. You may find out they are not. All 3 of them that I have had have made an exceptional amount of noise. It sounds like marbles. Honestly, it sounds terrible. It sounds like marbles grinding, and it scares the fish. But this is probably the most common one because of its size. It's fairly compact, and it does output. But once again, the problem that I have with this pump is that it seems to just take forever to do its job. And so today we're going to prove that and see if there's, a better pump or whatever that we could find and use. But I wanted to demonstrate how this pump flows. So what we're going to do is, you can see here I have a 27 gallon Home Depot bucket that is just filled with water. That's why it's big and expanded. And we're going to pump this in, and we're going to time how long this should work. So this pump technically is rated, it's a 793 gallons per hour. So if we do the math on that real quickly, that should be, I think I equated it was down to what's 800 divided by 60 minutes. It was math, which my wife will tell me here in a second after she double checks it, because I had the figure and then I just lost it. But the point is does this pump actually put out X per minute as it so claims to do, right? So we're going to test that theory. So what we'll do is we'll put it in here, we'll start it. I've got 2 5-gallon buckets to measure its output, and I'm being told, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so it's 13.3333 forever. So let's say between 13 and 14 gallons per minute, right? So 793, 800, divided by 60, which is, per 60 minutes per hour, gives us the how many gallons per minute this thing should flow. Now, this is a 3/4 output to a Python. Once again, Python is the most common thing you're probably going to use. Almost guaranteed you're going to have a Python. This Python, from everything I've read, is about a 1/2 inch or even smaller inside diameter. So this is a fairly small inside diameter hose, which is a problem because if this pump puts out more, it's got to release the pressure as it builds. It's either going to do it in the hose, or what happens in the Sicce unit here is on the bottom, it has these 3 holes right here. So as pressure comes in, right, as fluid comes in, it's going to try to pressurize this, and it's only going to get to a certain point, and it's going to force the water back out. So it's going to force water back out at pressure into your tank, which if you have a, planted tank, a nice decorated tank, whatever, that sucks, because then you're going to be pumping water and you're just going to be dispersing sand everywhere. So the ultimate goal is to have a pump that removes as much water as efficiently as possible, but doesn't make a mess in the tank. So let's go ahead and give this a go, and we can start doing this live. So we're just going to drop this one in. Now, I am going to drop this in all the way at the bottom because it's not a tank. You can see there all the water coming out. We're going to move our demonstration bucket here. That's where I keep everything. It's wonderful. And we're going to plug this in. This is just an empty bucket. And you can see here it's already kind of gravity bleeding. And that's a good thing. The reason why I did that is I want to simulate a tank is going to be above and you're going to be pumping. So you're going to have some gravity assisting the pump, right? Which is why I wanted to demonstrate. You can see it's not even plugged in. That's just gravity. That's what should happen on your tanks, right? You're going to have some normal gravity pull. So we come up here, we're going to plug this in. So now this is running. We're going to take our kitchen timer right here, nice and pink. What we are going to do though real quick is we're going to dump this out so we can get a fresh reading. Like that. Uh-oh. Got my thing wet. Okay, here we go. We're going to put this in and see how many gallons per minute it will do. Ready? So remember, this should be about, what did we say, 13 gallons per minute, right? So 13 gallons in my head would be 2-ish 5-gallon buckets. We're almost at 30 seconds here, and we're not even to half of the bucket. And you can see that's not a lot of flow. It's okay, but it's not a lot. We're at 30 seconds, and I'm not even at halfway in the bucket. Now we're at 40 seconds. We're at 3/4 of this bucket. So I would make the argument that this pump is not keeping up with what it's rated for. We're going to be almost here to a minute. I'll stop it dead at a minute. 4 seconds. And time. So at 1 minute exactly on the timer, unplug the pump for a second, and we'll pull it out so it doesn't drain my bucket. So at 1 minute exactly, which you should be able to see on that right there, 1 minute exactly, we are only at right here in the bucket. So we're not even to a full 5 gallons, right? 5-gallon bucket. We're not even to the full 5 gallons. I don't know if we can see this on the camera over here, but if I tip this up a little bit, can we see more of the bucket level there? You can see where the line is, right? So we haven't even filled this. So in 1 minute, in theory, this pump, according to its specifications, should have been able to output, 13 to 14 gallons per minute. That didn't happen. This is my problem with the Sicce pump. It is a great pump. It does its job and it pumps water. It does it reliably. Well, ish. I've had 3, which we'll go over in a little bit. But it doesn't output the same. So when you have 3 very large tanks like we do, this turns into, 4 or 5 hour job each weekend where we're spending endless time draining water and then refilling it, right? So you don't want that. You want it to go as quickly as possible and easily as possible. And you want it to be quiet for the fish because you're going to scare them, stress them out every time you do this. You don't want to give them a heart attack because you did a water change, right? So clearly, we know that this pump is not capable of its output. But here's where we're going to throw in the caveat. Let's dump this first. Oh, that's heavy. Remember what I said earlier in the video? Was that this right here, this Python, from my research, is about a 1/2 inch diameter hose on the inside. Probably, truthfully, a little bit smaller. In fact, I think it's 5/8. So 5/8, right? It's 10/16, and a half is what? 8/16, right? A half is 8/16. So a half, smaller, 5/8 is a normal size garden hose. So this is 2/16 bigger than this. So this is a really small inside diameter. Okay, hopefully the phone doesn't cut out. Minor technical glitch. So as I was saying, the problem with the Python is that the Python is a 1/2 inch diameter inside tube, meaning that this is smaller, this tube part is smaller than this part, the normal hose connection, right? This is 3/4, so it goes 3/4 down to 1/2 inch. So it loses a 1/4 of an inch between there and there, becoming a restriction, right? Meaning that it can't flow as much. Well, on the Python, or on the Sicce itself, it's a 3/4 output. So what if we switch to a 3/4 diameter hose? Something that actually has the capability of doing it. So that's what we're going to test right now. So we're going to pull this off. We're going to set this aside, make a mess. It's fine. I'm going to set that over there. And we're going to go get one of our hoses. Now, on these 2 hoses that we have, this one is a 3/4 inside diameter hose. You can see it right there. And this one I got for funsies, which is a 1 inch diameter hose. And you can physically see the difference. This one is a 6 foot in length. This one is also a 6 foot in length. And you can just see this one is much more girthier than the other one, clearly, right? Like, it's a much bigger hose. I'm surprised it's not black. All right, let's go ahead and cut this out. Let's go ahead and open this. Like that. Throw the O-ring over there. Now, I've never used this brand of hose before. That's why we're trying it. Wanted to see how it would look and feel. Feels pretty high quality. It's a RMX AG Light Blue agricultural hose. It's for farms and stuff. So, should be, you know, fairly high quality from what I'm ascertaining. Pull this off. Throw that aside for a second. Okay, female end. We're going to attach this. Now, this is nice because this giant agricultural hose, this 3/4 agricultural hose, right? It attaches to our Sicce pump directly. Got to get it on there. Go ahead and turn it. Fight me here for a second. You know, most things do. Oh, there we go. The O-ring is preventing us from spinning it. So, we'll put the O-ring back in a little bit better. Like so. Yeah. And then we'll go ahead and... Okay. So, had to take a break. I had to go get some different tools. So remember what I said is that this is a 3/4 inch inside diameter hose, meaning that this 3/4 diameter is the same output as what that pump is, right? So now we don't have a restriction. We have a 3/4 to a 3/4 connection. So in theory, that gallon per hour, gallon per minute specification should now be matched because I have two, you know, equal components, right? So, like I said, this is a farm hose, agricultural hose, whatever. It's the first time I've used it. Made in India, not a USA product like some of the other ones, which is fine, whatever. But this fitting was really tight to get to spin around. So, you know, originally you have to start with this tool. And now sometimes you have to start with this tool. Sometimes you have to go bigger. Like I said, it's a bigger hose. You need bigger tools. So, you know, that's embarrassing for everybody. My little wrench was not enough. All right, so now let's go ahead and try this. So we're going to put this in here. Once again, not damaging our timer. Reset that. Go ahead and set this here. All right, in the bucket, pump is set, and we're going to plug it in. Pump is running. Start. And you can already hear that's actually quite a lot more volume. I mean, look at that. You can feel that's also quite a lot more volume. I don't hear it as bad either. Normally there's like a propeller marble sound. You don't hear that now. So we are at 20-ish seconds, and I've almost hit the point of the other pump, or the other hose, I should say. Right there, that's 30 seconds. We just hit 30 seconds, and I've now filled this bucket. Moving on to the second bucket. Put the hose down. So we are at 45 seconds, 40 seconds. Still counting right here. Once again, you can see, look how much more volume that is. And this is only with a 3/4 hose. So you can see just a lot of high output on this hose. And right there, stop. That's 1 minute exactly. 1 minute exactly. We'll turn the pump off now. And as you can see, break the suction. As you can see now with this other pump, right, or the same, I meant different hose, right? I've now filled, almost filled, both of our 5-gallon buckets. So this one is filled, truly filled. This one is not. This one's still probably got a few inches down. It's probably about that high away, right? So definitely not very good. Don't worry, we can just edit that part out. It's brilliant though. That's funny. That's a good idea. Okay. Anyways, so now we're back. So we filled up both buckets, right? And we can tell that's now closer to the max output of this pump, right? 13 to 14 gallons per minute. So The pump is capable of doing the job, supposedly. We're still not there yet. But even with a 3/4 to 3/4, we're still below specification. Now, I haven't done this yet on a tank, but I would almost bet that that would cut my time down probably by over a quarter in time. It would make it much faster. Okay, let's go ahead and reset, and we'll set up for a 1-inch hose now. Okay, so now I've switched out the hose to a 1-inch diameter, 1-inch inside diameter hose. Remember, this is a lot thicker, a lot girthier hose. That's why I now have 2 hands holding this thing. Much bigger. Okay, the point of the bigger hose is this. You have more volume right here in the hose to allow the pump to do its job. Pumps push water better than they pull water. So this, in theory, should make the pump's job easier and allow it to work even faster, right? So 3/4 to 1 inch, I've now given the water more room and more ability to do its job, or at least fill up this volume, right? So in theory, this should now be even faster than the last test, in theory. Remember, the specification of the Sicce Ultra Zero is 13 to 14 gallons per minute. So 10-gallon bucket, right? 5 and 5 is 10. In theory, we should be able to fill these up in roughly 50 seconds would be my math. So I'm going to go ahead and plug this in. My wife is going to hit play on the timer, or start on the timer. Ready? Go. And see, once again, I can actually feel that there's a lot more volume through this hose and less pressure right here in this hose because there's more area for the water to take up. We've almost got this bucket filled already. How many seconds are we at over there? We're at 22 seconds and we've almost filled this bucket. How many seconds are we at now? 35 seconds. Let's see if we actually hit our 14 per minute. We just crossed the halfway point on this bucket. We're still filling it up. Still going, still going, still going, still going, still going. And that's a minute right there. So, Portia said at 1 minute, we filled both these buckets. So realistically, okay, so as we can see, the 1-inch hose definitely did its job. It took up the volume of water and allowed it to flow without a lot of pressure and allowed it to have basically volumetric efficiency and fill the buckets. I mean, that filled the buckets pretty much close to time. I would argue that's probably 13 to 14 minutes or 13 to 14 gallons per minute. Very, very close. Like I said, these are filled at the brim, 10 gallons, right? Plus a little bit extra there. And then by the time she said time, like I said, you're probably right at the 13, 14 gallons per minute. So it'd be very interesting to see how Sicce rates this because in the instructions, I didn't see a chart that tells you. I'm sure it's online. I'll go look and find it. But either way, obviously the bigger the output, the more efficiency you're going to have because the pump doesn't have to fight as hard to do it, right? So once again, the big difference is this is like a 1/2 inch. This is 1 inch. So it's double the capacity of what the Python is. So let's talk about the negatives though real quick of what I just did. You can kind of see it sitting right here. This is a very large hose. This one is a 40% lighter, whatever, space age material, and it's still incredibly heavy. I mean, just this little chunk of hose probably is, more than 4 times the weight of this. The Python is also really flexible. You can move it around, you can whatever, you can step on this. I mean, this is really good high grade material. I'm not faulting it. I'm just saying I don't think it's big enough for the output of the pump, which is why I think it takes so damn long when you're doing water changes. Now, obviously, if you have like a 5 or a 10 or even like a 20 gallon, you're probably going to gravity bleed it, stick it in, suck it out, let it siphon out, and you're fine. We're talking for tanks between 20 and 75, even 100 gallons. I have 275 gallons right now that I use this on, and it still takes, with the Python, easily 30 plus minutes to drain it, especially if I'm doing 50 to 70% water changes for some of the cichlids we have. It takes too damn long. And so I'm trying to find the most efficient way possible to utilize our time, because it just doesn't make sense to have this many tanks and spend this long each weekend. Now, I don't have the ability to have an automatic water changer or a plumbing setup. That would obviously be the best way to do it. Not going to argue that point at all. Problem is, I just don't have the capability. So hoses are the answer right now. So here becomes the question. Flexzilla does make a 3/4 inside diameter hose. Flexzillas are light, easily maneuverable, very bendy, not bad quality hoses. Do I get a 3/4 Flexzilla and kind of just understand it's going to be faster than a Python, but slower than a 1-inch, but much more malleable and movable and bendable, maybe a little bit easier to drag around each weekend or every other weekend? Or do I suck it up for time, leave this one attached to the pump, stick that thing in there and suck it out as fast as possible and just call it a day? That's going to be the ultimate decision, right? Originally, when I started this video, it wasn't to bash the Sicce. It was to say that it just takes too damn long because of its pump output and type. And I actually went out and bought several pumps, which we're going to see in later videos, to try to speed things up. Now, more of these are pond pumps. They have a little bit more power, a little bit more horsepower, and that should obviously speed things up. But I'm actually really surprised, honestly, that the Sicce is putting out that fast. So the restriction is not the pump. The pump is doing its job. It's the hose. It's the Python. So it'd be nice if Python would come out with a bigger diameter hose, like a 1-inch would be king. If they could do the same material in a 1-inch hose, that would be phenomenal. Now, I do know that I'm utilizing garden hose type connections because that's what the Sicce uses. The Ultra Zero, the new utility pump that they just came out with, the bigger one, that one has barbs that you can put different size hoses on and use a hose clamp. So that one has a little bit easier connection to a 1-inch output. This one has more of a garden style threaded, garden hose style threaded output. So that's why I'm using garden hoses, is to make it easy to attach and detach from the Sicce, because you're not going to, if you set this up with hose clamps and stuff, realistically, you're not taking it off again. It's going to stay that way. And that's fine. The way that I have this set up right now, and that's why I have this, like I said, this feeder hose from it, right, is I leave this part of the hose attached to this pump the entire time. It never comes off. And I attach this to the rest of my Python, which is then attached to the sink and other places. And then I can suck water in and out. And I have, gravel vac, which I switch in and out. So these do have their place. They make it quick. And like I said, for a smaller tank, I think that's fine. 1 tank, maybe 2 tanks, it's fine. It's not bad. I'm just saying when you start getting to bigger and bigger and bigger tanks with a lot more water volume, that you don't want to be spending all weekend, letting the hobby beat you, letting it get to a point where, oh, this is too much work. I don't want to do this anymore. I feel with a lot of hobbies that people stop because it ends up being work instead of fun. So how can I make this the most efficient use of my time? And how can I do this the most efficiently and economically, right? That's the idea. So once again, I'm very surprised. Very surprising ending. Originally, I was going to, like I said, wasn't too impressed with the Sicce. The problem is not the horsepower. The problem is how I'm using the horsepower. Just like a car, right? Maybe the pump is the right size for the job, but what it's doing on its output isn't correct. So I will tell you, though, on reliability for the Sicce Ultra Zero. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I've now had 3 of these. The reason I have had 3 of these is 2 of them have burned out entirely. The one I had for about a year, made it a year, then it stopped working. I was doing a water change. Halfway through the water change, it stopped, never turned on again. That one didn't get too hot. The second one I purchased as its replacement, I plugged it in, and it made it a week. And it made it a week. It made it through a few water changes, and then it failed. And when I pulled that one out, it was so damn hot that it was enough to burn my hand. And that pump never spun again. It would try to go to try to spin, and it never did it. So I ordered a third one mostly for this video demonstration. I would argue it's not a bad pump. Like I said, it does its job. I would argue that its reliability, though, you might get a year or 2 years out of it, depending on how many water changes you're doing. If you're doing a lot of water changes like I'm doing, you probably want to look into something maybe a little bit more industrial grade, which is what we're going to be discussing in some of the next videos. Just once you breach a point where instead of it being a hobby and you start going to bigger, better things, you need equipment that can keep up. And once again, I feel this is great. You have a few tanks, you change your water occasionally. This thing will last you years. It's not a bad product, especially at its price point. I think I paid for this replacement one like $99 from Petco on sale. Not a bad pump, definitely usable. Sicce has a warranty, whatever. I just need something that does it better. And that's what we're really trying to figure out here through these experiments is how can I do this ultimately better than what I've been doing, because it takes too damn long.